6 steps to confidently handle underperformance issues without risking a legal headache. Hi, I'm Norelle, and I help allied health businesses hire and manage a profitable team of practitioners. I've spent the last 5 years directly supporting allied health businesses, so I understand what it looks like, and I have a solid background in HR. I combine a HR career spanning 15 years in the corporate sector, along with 4 years co-owning a clinic, and now support allied health businesses directly and have done so for over 5 years. It's fair to say that I've managed my fair share of problems over my career, everything from underperformance, conduct issues, investigations, and fair work disputes. And here's a really uncomfortable truth for some people. Most underperformance issues can be fixed early if you just happen to have the difficult conversations. A lot of the time what I would see, particularly in the corporate space, because, we're talking about large volumes of employees, supervisors with large teams, and often people who were technical experts who've been promoted to positions where they don't have the leadership skills that they really need, just ignoring problems because it's too hard or not knowing how to deal with them. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 steps I use to help allied health clinic owners confidently handle underperformance. And this could be anything from practitioners missing their billable hours targets, their utilization, their rebooking rates, admin making mistakes. These steps will help you address it early and protect your business. Have you ever heard the saying, the squeaky wheel gets? The longer you ignore underperformance, the harder it is to fix. And you also risk creating a culture where your high performers are unhappy because they can see that you're allowing poor performance in other team members and they can build resentment. So really the first thing is to spot the warning signs early. If we're talking about performance, this could be things like not meeting their target. If we're talking about practitioner performance, this could generally start in the form of not meeting targets, whether that is not rebooking enough of their clients if you're running a private practice, or perhaps not getting their notes done in the allocated time, or really struggling to keep up with the workload. Particularly if they're a new grad, a lot of this just comes down to needing more mentoring and support. And the earlier you can do that and the better you are at offering training, the more effective the outcome will be. So for example, let's say you have a new grad who is just a little not confident in their skills, and therefore they lack the confidence to advise their clients what the recommended treatment plan is, or they're a little weak on the delivery, which then leads to a reduction in their rebooking rate or lower retention than you would like. That's obviously like a skills gap that you can fix. The problem only starts to come if you've tried to address this and delivered good training and you're still seeing the same problem a few months in. From an admin perspective, this could look like them missing details, perhaps not managing the calendar effectively, or maybe the way that they're interacting with your team or your clients isn't really the way you'd want them to. Now, again, you can provide coaching and support on this, and if you keep seeing a pattern, pay attention to that. Another really interesting and small behavior that you could see up front is just the way that people interact with each other. And you've got to be really cautious of this because sometimes, think of the old saying, what we walk past is what we accept. So if you're walking past snide little comments, lack of engagement with other people, brushing commentary off, really just pick up on that and make a mental note because it might turn into something later. Now, the next step is to really get clear on expectations. And if you've got data to back it up or examples, that's really helpful. So let's say that you're speaking with a practitioner. Make sure that you've got your expectations crystal clear and you are able to measure and show them the information that you want to talk to them about, particularly if we're talking about performance in terms of meeting KPI. Now, if you onboarded your team well, you should have had a discussion with them about KPIs when they first started. Whether this is listed in their position descriptions, whether it's listed in a weekly dashboard that you track with them in terms of their performance, or whether you've just had a conversation about it, they should be fully aware of the performance expectations. Don't have what we call stealth expectations, where you assume that everyone else is aware of your expectations, even though you haven't communicated them. If you've got an issue where they're not meeting billable hours, for example, let's say their target is 25 weekly. Talk to them about the fact that in the data you can see that their current billable hours are averaging 18, even though the expectation is 25. Open a conversation to ask them why they think this is occurring. Now, they could come up with some issues like that they don't feel like they're managing their time well, or they feel burnt out, and perhaps they're actually not billing for things that they should be. Perhaps it's admin managing the calendar poorly if your admin managed the calendar. Perhaps it's a lack of clients coming through, new referrals, because you haven't ramped up your marketing activities. So don't jump straight to a conclusion that it's them first, and open the space for a conversation about it. Make sure you're having a really clear conversation with them. You can use language like, I notice you've been struggling to meet your targets lately. Can you talk to me about what's going on for you? As I mentioned before, there could be a valid reason for this from a systems perspective, or something that you can resolve, or there could be something personal going on, or they could require more training and support. Just make sure you listen and confirm that you understand their perspective. But do make sure that you close out the conversation with clear expectations and next steps. Now, that could be checking in weekly with them. That could be making changes in your internal processes. Whatever it looks like for you, just make sure it's really clear with both parties. Now, the next thing is sometimes, even though you have the conversations, things don't go well. So it's really important up front that you document everything. This could simply be that you make a diary note, or that you send an email, even to yourself. If it's a really informal chat, there's no need to follow it up with a formal letter or a counselling form like we would sometimes in the corporate space, which frankly is a little bit of overkill if it's not required. So really what you want is just a record that you had a conversation and what the agreed outcomes were. Now, the first time you have this conversation, I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting it in writing to the person if their KPIs are already clear. But let's say that their KPIs weren't already clear, then it definitely would be appropriate to send them an email and say, just following up as per our conversation, this is the standard that we expect. As agreed, we will do X, Y, Z to support you to meet that. And we'll discuss this again with you on date. Quite simple. Now, if you get down the track, let's say you go 3 months down the track and you're still having these regular, consistent issues despite all of the support that you're offering, these records become really important in the potential instance that you get a Fair Work claim. Now, I recommend that you have an action plan or somewhere to track this data. If we're talking about practitioners, this could simply be part of your KPI tracking spreadsheet. And if you don't already have one, you should have one. Feel free to reach out and I can send you a free copy of our template that we give to our clients. And if it's an admin team member, then same thing. You may not have a KPI tracker as such, but you will need to make sure that you have some way of checking in with them and reviewing their progress against your expected expectations. Now, when you have your follow-up meetings, whether that's weekly or fortnightly or monthly, depending on what's best for the situation, make sure that you recognize progress and celebrate success. Sometimes we forget to do this as people generally, not just as managers. I definitely am guilty of this in my own business. So make sure you are rewarding your employees with praise and motivation to continue doing a good job and achieving what you want them to achieve. Now, if they don't improve or they have slightly improved, but they're still not at the standard you would expect, you have a couple of options here. If they're a new employee and they're still in their probationary period, you can think about whether you are going to continue their employment beyond the probationary period. If they've been with you longer than that, generally more than 12 months if you're a small business employer, or more than 6 months if you're a large business with more than 15 employees, they're eligible for unfair dismissals. So you need to make sure that you follow formal process. And you should do this anyway, because you should always make sure that an employee knows what the reason is. They've had an opportunity to respond. And if it's performance related, they need to have had an opportunity to improve. Now, we may not be talking about termination yet, but we're talking about if somebody isn't responding to the small improvements that you're trying to initiate with them, or they're responding, but their performance is still below the standard you would expect, the next step. So the step in between is a performance improvement plan normally. And during that process, you may formalize this more. You may then have structured meetings. You'll record everything and you will supply those notes to the employee. And they need to be made aware that if their performance doesn't improve to a satisfactory standard, the eventual end result could be termination of their employment. The goal of that process should be improvement, not termination. However, unfortunately, a lot of the time that we go through these processes, employees will either resign or they won't substantially improve and end up in termination. This is obviously not where we want to get to with our team members. And that's why it's really important to set those expectations up front and to manage probations effectively, to make sure that you're actually hiring a good fit for your position and someone who has the skills and experience and the cultural fit so that these issues don't come up in the first place. Or if they do come up, you manage them really early so that they don't become a long-term problem. If you're facing an underperformance issue with a staff member right now, just please don't ignore it. Handle it with clarity and confidence. And if you're not sure what you should do, you can grab a free copy of our performance conversation script by clicking down below. This will walk you through a structure on how to manage your conversations in a fair and equitable way. If this was helpful, please like, comment, share, subscribe. You can also reach out to us if you'd like support, if you've got an issue and you're not sure how to manage it. And I'll see you in the next video.